The Knights had the early run of play, picking up 5 penalties in the first 10 minutes, but Para hit back, Rapati out-sprinting O'Davis for the corner. Big Adam Muir couldn't keep out of the action. When a high ball was spilt, he was there to pounce. Into the second half, and Knights centre Russell Wire tried to wiggle his way through. He got a pass away and Ainscough was in. But just minutes later, one of the plays of the game, Johns kicked and regained, and the Knights charged to an 18 points to 4 lead. The Knights threw the ball around and it was champagne football, the skipper setting a fine example for yet another 4-pointer. And there was more, Smith showing a big step and a clear run to the line, 28-4. The two stars of the day teamed up for the next. Andrew John sent a perfect pass to Muir, who went in for his third. The final score, a comprehensive victory to Newcastle, 34-4. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Appearing in Newcastle Court were 32-year-old Anthony Wayne Barnes and 21-year-old Peter David Kilduff. Both escaped from Southport Watch House last Wednesday. They're charged with 2 armed robberies which occurred on Friday at the Broadmeadow News Agency and the Windale Post Office. They're also charged with stealing 2 cars and firearm offences. Both have pleaded not guilty. Accompanying them in court were 30-year-old Kerry Ann Clark and her brother, 24-year-old Anthony Raymond Clark, both of Waratah. Police allege they were involved in the armed robbery at the Windale Post Office. The 4 were caught by police following a chase through bushland at Charlestown. In a statement tendered in court, it was alleged that Barnes had a loaded pump-action shotgun when he was arrested. He also had the proceeds of the Windale robbery down the front of his trousers. He has been charged with using a weapon to avoid apprehension. Bail was refused and all 4 remanded in custody for a further appearance next month. It's expected Queensland Police will seek extradition orders for Barnes and Kilduff.
At the heart of the new research program is this $60,000 DNA extractor and an associated computer bought with funds provided by the Hunter Valley Cancer Appeal. It takes just 2 hours to analyse a blood sample and come up with the patient's individual genetic pattern.
And this information is then translated into a family pedigree, and we store that information and we keep that on file.
The aim is to try and discover any rogue genes which may be present in the person's family history and determine what their relevance is to breast cancer risk.
5 to 10% of women who get breast cancer do so because of genetic inheritance of a rogue gene. But the understanding of how those genes work to produce breast cancer will give us clues about how all breast cancers develop.
The Mater Hospital itself has chipped in, providing a research technician to operate the new equipment, allowing the research project to get underway without delay. The project has worldwide ramifications because it links the International Breast Cancer Prevention Program, which commenced in the Hunter region, with molecular genetics research.
We're doing something about finding out why breast cancer develops, and if we can learn more about that, then we can more effectively prevent it. And our goal long term is a world without breast cancer.
The Local Government Remuneration Tribunal has decided that all councillors will get a pay rise from $3,000 to $5,000 each year. Mayors who currently receive less than $10,000 per year will get a pay rise to that amount. Newcastle's Lord Mayor, Councillor John McNaughton, is the second highest paid Lord Mayor in the state. He earns more than $68,000 per year.
The Lord Mayors of the 4 major local government areas in the state do a tremendous amount of work.
Mayors and Lord Mayors who receive more than $10,000 will retain that salary until the tribunal completes its review in July next year.
Jobs located principally the same as it's been flying all the time. You might want a photograph.
Playing Betty Baggs, N. Jamison, Jay Bilmer and Ed Phillips.
Since it first began nearly a decade ago, the Hunters Area Assistance Scheme has funded a wide range of community-based projects.
It's about assisting areas that are undergoing rapid growth and social and economic change because of that. It's about helping them to provide services for the new people that move there.
The government has allocated $27 million to improve social services statewide. Over the next 4 years, $5 million will come to the Hunter.
The sorts of things that are funded under the scheme include human services like youth centres and youth workers, childcare, services for the aged, welfare projects for people of non-English speaking background, projects for Aboriginal people, a wide range.
From early next month, any community group is eligible to apply for funds at their local council or Department of Planning.
In order to access the funds, you have to be attached to an incorporated organisation, and most people can either do that themselves through their local community centres, neighbourhood centres, or even ask council if they want to do it on their behalf.
apply for this? When would I have to apply?
Well, apply as soon as possible.
So what we got to do there, we train the people to see whether they are the right sort of person for the job.
Choosing the right subjects at school can be challenging. Taking the best career path can be even more daunting.
Vocational education is now having a big emphasis from a student's point of view. There are still only about 35% of students go on to university and tertiary education, so the 65% of students who leave school have to enter the workforce or other means of training.
The two-day Careers and Tertiary Information Expo at City Hall is aimed at exposing students to a variety of choices. The main advice: keep all options open.
The girls have exactly the same opportunity as what the men do.
With today's economic conditions, you can't just aim for one single career. Career options are very important. When you finish school, if you don't get the grades or the marks or the jobs aren't there, you must be willing to choose maybe another career, a third career, or maybe a fourth option at this stage.
You any closer to choosing your career?
Yep, actually I am. I've learned a lot about management and that, so yep, that's what I'm going to do, I think.
The Westpac at Branxton is a local landmark situated at the main intersection in town, but the bank sold the building 3 years ago to a local businessman and took out a lease prior to its decision today to close down completely. A subdued crowd turned up for a protest meeting this afternoon showing its opposition to the move, local petrol and liquor retailer Noel Delforce summing up the mood.
We have a business here in Branxton and we bank a lot of cheques in a week, and the majority of those cheques we bank would be Branxton Westpac branch. But as I said, there are a lot of pensioners still in this town who do their banking with the Westpac here.
In explaining its decision to close the Branxton branch, the bank quoted the familiar story of lack of long-term financial viability. But locals say there is new development in town which warrants the branch staying open.
And I just can't work out why they want to do it, because there's so many people in the town that bank here, plus new estates are opening up here and there's all new homes. I just can't work out why they want to shut it down.
And there are indications the bank had been planning to move for some time. TAB agent Melita Watson saying she was referred elsewhere when she applied locally for a housing loan.
They say they're closing it because there's not enough business. The business is here if they want it.
Cessnock Mayor Marie Callaghan remembers the fight to save the Commonwealth Bank branch at Weston in February and puts forward the same argument this time against Westpac.
This is not a bank with a customer service focus, because if that were the case, the bank would talk to us beforehand. They would consult with council and with the community.
Her fellow Labor Cessnock councillor Joel Fitzgibbon had a more positive outlook. The other finance facilities in town are a state bank agency at the paper shop and credit unions at the hardware outlet and real estate agents. But there seems no chance of stopping the Westpac's demise on the 10th of June. The association's 60 maker members in the Hunter today turned their attention to truth in labelling. In other words, putting on the bottle what actually goes in the bottle. As well, French terms such as Chablis, Burgundy and Beaujolais are out, with generic terms only allowed. But there is a trade-off.
If we want to have better access to the EEC market, the EEC people are saying you cannot use those names, and that's fair. So we have a phase-out period. Now, we give those away for export, but we get less trade barriers, if you like, so our wines can get in a little bit easier. That's the idea.
With our overseas reputation so important to increasing exports, a penalty of 2 years jail and a $60,000 fine could apply for any maverick activity. But the Wine Corporation's Ian Mackley says most producers comply. His organisation's main aim now is to define more clearly just where one wine-producing region ends and another begins.
Regulators want regulations, and you've got to be able to prove things in courts of law. It's now necessary for us to put boundary lines around our viticultural regions.
Although legislation to ensure integrity of labelling was enacted 2 years ago, winemakers still have 3 years of the phasing-in period to bring their products into line. Even then, a bottle need contain only 85% of the nominated region to allow for various styles to be produced through blending.
When the walls of communism were forcibly removed from the then Soviet Union, millions of Russians rejoiced in the promise of radical change. New leaders worked towards a freer society with more opportunities, but it's come at a price.
And there are difficulties and dangers, also criminality and economic instability, and many people are still very poor. But I think that there are good changes also.
Anatoly and Larissa Sosnovsky are Russian professors of politics and economics on a 6-week tour of Australia. They're speaking to different universities, sharing insights into their new way of life.
You can make your fortune very easily now in Russia, just converting rubles into dollars and vice versa. And that's why the biggest incomes now in financial sphere and in trade.
And as for their views on Australia,
it's so sunny here. You know, it keeps you positively minded always. Because in Russia, winter is so cold and severe. Great difference.
Oh, I think it's very exciting for the Manning area. If anyone had any doubts that we were a growing tourist destination, they can't have them anymore.
Police are calling for more help from the public in the fight against crime. On the same principle as the Operation Noah phone-in and Neighbourhood Watch, this is a plan to put your information on paper.
People, if they have any information on someone in their neighbourhood or in their area that's participating in criminal activity, those people can write that information down on a piece of paper, put it in an envelope, and then, even without a stamp, put it in any letterbox throughout the Newcastle area.
It's called Operation Box W. People can write in without leaving a name with information for the Waratah Police District. That's Mayfield and Hamilton only. Under a deal with Australia Post, all you have to do is mark the envelope Box W, Mayfield Post Office.
We're just looking for any information. It doesn't have to be drug-related, any information, and we're quite hopeful to be very successful.
To make sure the message gets through, leaflets are being printed and will be sent out to homes in the Mayfield and Hamilton area. If the operation proves to be a success, other police patrols will take it on. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
It was only a year ago that the Office of the Ombudsman identified Lake Macquarie as having one of the highest levels of ratepayer complaints in the state.
People had a perception of the council that we really weren't doing the right thing, and that's something we have tried to turn around and correct.
That and the Local Government Act, which requires council to adopt a code of conduct before the end of next month, will see some changes, including councillors and staff becoming more accountable for their dealings with the public.
There have been rules for years, and people honour those rules, even if they're unwritten in lots of ways, and it still is only as good as the people involved. You know, I think there's a tremendous amount of integrity in local government, and people do respect that.
Courtesy is high on the list. Improper conduct will be under the spotlight, along with bribes, corruption and conflict of interests. There'll be an undertaking to keep all concerned parties well informed on council matters.
I'm a great believer in open government. I think that's very important that that people know a situation. I don't think anything should be underhand or undercover. Whatever we keep things on the table for people to see, then nothing really should get away from us.
Times have changed since the hall, built by council, ratepayers and the Joint Coal Board, was the focus of community life back in the 1950s. Now it's hardly used and just one of about 10 halls that keeps council hand in pocket for repairs and upkeep. An alcohol ban and noise restrictions slapped on the use of the hall, along with some confusion over fire safety codes, discourage many people from renting the building. Locals say they use the hall's grounds and are against a council plan to lease the site to a church group. Concerned residents held a meeting in the hall this morning. Lake Mayor John Kilpatrick lent concerned residents an open ear at a public meeting this morning, but he responded to criticism saying that the community had become too mobile, lazy and useless to care much about the hall anyway.
I don't believe that at all, actually. The community is band together here in forming a committee to save the hall and our parkland. We don't believe that it should be leased for 21 years to any group at all, that it should be open space and saved for future generations.
People nowadays tend to, well, I guess I'm the same as everybody else, you tend to go to the air-conditioned comfort of clubs and other places to run your classes, and so people aren't using the halls as much, but invariably they're in very good positions in communities, and we should look at ways in which the community can use them.
Senior Sergeant Vince Fallons is heading the task force codenamed Operation Johns. It follows a similar police sting in Sydney, which culminated last week in the arrest of around 150 people and the recovery of more than $2 million in stolen goods. While the Newcastle operation, which involves 6 detectives, is on a much smaller scale to Sydney's Operation Basalt, its aims are similar.
We visit all pawn shops, second-hand dealers, as been mentioned in a major operation in Sydney. We identify the persons who's placing that property in those premises, and then we try and identify the owners and get the property back to the owners.
Operation Johns began in the city just over a fortnight ago. Already, police have made arrests and recovered property. Police believe there are several gangs and individuals targeting Newcastle suburbs. The number of residential robberies since 1992 has increased by around 10 a month. They're asking the public to report anything suspicious.
They may see a strange motor vehicle in their street, some person visiting premises that they don't know. Please contact us and we'll have the matter investigated.
Jodie McKay, NBN News.
The nature reserve and its wetlands have had to contend with industry since Kooragang Island was reclaimed in the late 60s. An unwritten rule has seen the railway line act as a divider between factories and the environment. The $5 million fertiliser plant approved last night would be the first industry to move across that line.
I think unfortunately the Lord Mayor is carrying through a very pro-development strategy at the moment for the city, about which we should all be concerned.
The proposed plant is the latest in a spate of new industrial developments for Kooragang, which has angered Stockton residents. Councillor Sutton called last night for a moratorium on any more approvals on Kooragang. He wants a strategic development plan made to take into account all the aspects of the area.
I wasn't prepared to support any more major industrial developments on Kooragang Island until such time as we have in place a strategy which deals with issues like the lack of a fire station on the island, the use of the rail transport, the adequate protection of the adjacent wetland and nature conservation areas, and the water quality issues.
Many people already say that the industrial factories are built too close to Kooragang Nature Reserve. The fertiliser plant will be built on the buffer zone, which environmentalists say will destroy the precious wetlands.
These things are producing products which basically go in and do a lot of damage on the land in terms of water quality, and I really think that we've got to ask questions about whether Newcastle as a city wants to be involved in the production of those sorts of products.
A seminar was held in Nelson Bay today to discuss the proposed additions.
Long term, our fear is that the existing Tomaree National Park won't be viable. It won't provide a safe haven for the native plants and animals that we would like to see conserved.
There are 7 separate pockets that make up Tomaree National Park. The proposal would see an extra 9,000 hectares of land added to that. This map shows the proposed areas shaded in green, which include the Nelson Bay Anna Bay Reserve, Newcastle Bight and the Tilligiri Peninsula. The Government Department of Conservation and Land Management, known as CALM, owns most of the property being targeted.
10,000 hectares is a tremendous amount of land, Jason. Plus there's a lot of other competing needs and uses for land.
Patterson MP Bob Horn has been fighting for years for coastal zones to be protected.
Obviously it's going to be a long, hard fight. I don't think the chances at this stage would be very high, but the process has started.
Local environment groups have decided after today's meeting to continue an aggressive campaign to have the land made national park. Jason Neuenhoff, NBN News.
It was a rousing reception for the former political giant, who prides himself as being a man of the people. He mightn't be the leader of the country anymore, but for the 200 people at the Belmont Sportsman's Club, he still holds pride of place for the Labor Party faithful. All the Hawke mannerisms have outlived his political career, a career he doesn't want to resurrect.
No.
But he's just as outspoken as ever, predicting the newly elected Liberal team of Downer and Costello will keep the government honest.
I think they'll be a pretty good team.
He couldn't help claiming a little credit for the downfall of apartheid in South Africa.
Well, of course, I feel very proud that we played the leading role, really, in the world in bringing sanctions into play, which finally brought apartheid to an end.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
It's a fact of life that an accident can be a shocking experience, not just for the casualties, but for the first aid officers as well.
Some injuries are shockingly horrendous, and you can't explain that to people in a classroom. So by doing these scenarios, they actually see what they should expect.
At Munmora Power Station, 7 teams competed in the inter-industry first aid competition, squads from both the government and private sector. The idea is to put them through the rigours of an accident situation, using special effects to give a frighteningly realistic look. Here, first aid officers from Pasminco are treating casualties after a detonator has exploded. The injuries are horrific. In this scenario, Pacific Power is treating patients who were hit by a backfiring winch. It's the 3rd year of the championship and the play acting seems to be paying off. At Pacific Power alone, accidents have been cut by 88% in recent years. Peter Ryan, NBN News.